Good morning. Please, Ms Reinhardt and other officers, those who are due at the table, please come forward. Thank you and welcome to your first estimates. I now welcome Ms Reinhardt, Parliamentary Budget Officer, and other officers of the Parliamentary Budget Office. Do you have an opening statement?
I do. I'm happy to table it or to talk through it.
It really depends on senators. You don't have any questions. Senator Pocock has questions. Perhaps we might just... How long is that?
It's pretty short.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to commence my opening statement by thanking my predecessor, Stein Helgerby, for the work he put into the PBO and the great organisation he helped build. I'd also like to thank the presiding officers and the JCPAA for my appointment to the role of Parliamentary Budget Officer. I see the PBO as an important institution in our democracy, having established itself by delivering high-quality costings and budget analysis and helpful and important fiscal tools and election commitments report, which we'll be producing this year. I wanted to acknowledge some of the foundations of the work of the PBO, the most important being that we serve all members of Parliament, that we do our work with independence, integrity and confidentiality. These are essential to the success of the reputation of the PBO. I'd also like to note the importance of the high quality and dedicated staff. My experience since joining the organisation is a team that is engaged and work hard to deliver high quality, independent fiscal and budgetary advice and analysis for members of Parliament. These foundations are what make the organisation valued and respected, and I see my role as supporting and leading with those foundations front of mind. In terms of the PBO's work program, our immediate focus is on election preparation. This means ensuring we have the most up-to-date data and models available across a vast range of policy areas so as to be able to cost proposals and commitments leading up to and through the election period. Ensuring that in the lead up to the election, we continue to process requests for costings and budget analysis as quickly and to a high quality to assist parliamentarians and parties with their preparations and ensure we are ready to cost for such costings in the election commitments report. Providing guidance to policy departments on what might be expected during the election is also important for their prompt responses on data and models. Preparing to be able to produce the election commitments report and then considering the post-election arrangements for assisting a new Parliament. Beyond the election, we will also continue to focus on building the fiscal tools and research that we have available through our website. These products have been very well received and do a number of things. They make it possible for parliamentarians, the media, interested groups and the general public to understand what drives budget outcomes. Build Your Own Budget is the main product that delivers this. They inform public debate and understanding of complex tax or expenditures that impact on the fiscal position. Our papers on the tax mix and on imputation credits have been very well received as publications that are accessible and simplify complex parts of the revenue base. Our products also build and add to information in the public domain. Our historical fiscal data series is an example of this. Post-election, we will continue to work to build on this self-initiated work as required under our guiding legislation. So I'm happy to leave it there because I know you have a lot to cover and I'll table the rest of the document.
Thank you, Ms Reinhardt, for that indulgence and thank you for your opening statement. Senator Barbara Pocock has the call, and I'm just going to seek to see if other senators have questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for being here and welcome to your role and to estimates. And thanks to your staff for the very intense work that many of them are conducting. At present, I've got a couple of lines of questioning. I just want to better understand an aspect of the way that you work. Your rules around the basis of preparation of PBO costings say, when an individual or parliamentarian or political party chooses to publicly release a PBO costing that's been prepared on a confidential basis for them, it is inappropriate to claim that the PBO has costed the policy of any other parliamentarian or political party. Can you expand on that and explain the background to that provision?
So the PBO is, as I said in my opening statement, a really important part of our work is our independence, and we do not take on political work. We cost on the basis that a costing that's given to us is a costing of the parliamentarian who is providing the costing. As many of you will know, many things that we look at are quite complicated. We work very hard to understand exactly what the costing request entails. That often involves going back and forth with parliamentarians to understand the detail. And so our costings are provided for the parliamentarian who requests them. We do not cost the policies of other parliamentarians or parties, and we're very clear about that when we provide costings.
So if someone submits a proposal to you which you recognise as the policy of someone other than the person submitting the party, what's your response? Submitting the request, what's your response to that?
So we would always engage with the parliamentarian and say, this has to be your costing that you wish us to provide as your costing, and we request details of that policy, the specifications, on the basis that it is their costing. So that is the way we would deal with it. We don't refuse to cost a request. We are clear that that entails their request and the specifications are theirs.
In 2013, I understand that such an event did happen. How did you respond in 2013 to this kind of event?
So luckily I have a long-lived person on my team, which is excellent, but the Parliamentary Budget Officer at the time did respond to that.
Thank you, Senator. Gareth Tunks, Chief Operating Officer at the Parliamentary Budget Office. I'll just have a quick look back to our media releases at the time, but I think the incident you are talking about was around about August 2013. So the then Parliamentary Budget Officer, Mr Phil Bowen, released a media release on the 29th of August 2013, and what that talked about, the title of it was Basis for Preparation of PBO Costings, and the statement that was made was all PBO costings are prepared on the basis of the policy specifications provided by the parliamentary party or individual parliamentarian requesting the policy costing. PBO guidance issued on 9 May 2013, and a copy of that guidance is available on our website, makes it clear that the PBO will not prepare costings of policies attributed to an individual parliamentarian or political party without the knowledge and active participation of that parliamentarian or political party in the costing process. When the PBO undertakes a confidential policy costing for an individual parliamentarian or political party, it relies solely on the policy details specified by that parliamentarian or political party. When an individual parliamentarian or political party chooses to publicly release a PBO costing that has been prepared on a confidential basis for them, it is inappropriate to claim that the PBO has costed the policy of any other parliamentarian or political party. Unless all of the policy specifications were identical, the financial implications of the policy could vary markedly. So that was a statement that was made back in August 2013. From memory, there's been a couple of others released since then, but it's quite rare.
So just taking that on board and your comments, Ms Reinhardt, it seems that you go now back and forward and look for some documentation of policy to validate and back up the request that the individual or the political party has made. You are looking for a connection to that party, to the policy.
I think that's perhaps the correction. The comment I'd add is we are used by parliamentarians in the formation of their policies, as well as in some cases subsequent to announcement. So we wouldn't necessarily expect that there would be documentation in the public domain for every costing that we're doing. Mm-hmm. So we're working with parliamentarians on a costing that they're requesting at the time with the specifications they're requiring.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for that elaboration. I wanted to go to your pre-budget submission to the government, and this is my last question, so it won't be long. I'm aware that you have made a submission to the government pre-budget. What engagement have you had from the government on the funding request made by the PBO?
So as with many agencies, our prior to budgets, we work with finance on how our fiscal outlook is looking, the pressures on our agency and the work that we're doing. The JCPA AA has taken a lot of interest in our work. Later in my opening statement, I've talked to the fact that we have had a significant growth in demand for the work of the PBO, which is a fantastic outcome for us and for the Parliament. So we've worked with government on understanding what those pressures are, and it's for government whether there is any changes in our budget allocation.
So the expansion of the crossbench, the expansion of the Greens in particular, have led to an expansion in demand that you face, and that's what you've been putting to government. Is that part of what you've been talking about?
So I guess I would say that coming into the organisation, there's been a greater engagement with the PBO across the Parliament. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we have seen, I think the numbers are, during the 24 calendar, we had completed 1,209 requests from parliamentarians, which is around 3 times, just under 3 times the previous annual average. So there is a substantial expansion.
Massive increase, thank you. The original $6 million financial buffer investment given to the PBO, in addition to sort of normal ongoing funds, when it was established in 2012, has now, I understand, almost exhausted. Can you tell me why this fallback fund is important and what would be the implications for the PBO's capacity if it were to run out?
So the fallback fund is at $1.8 million. It was established initially as a fund because there was uncertainty over the requirements of the ongoing PBO. I think it is for government to determine how they want to fund the PBO, whether it's ongoing, whether it's with buffers. And it will always be the case that we will have to prioritise within the resources we're given. So, yeah.
Of course, yeah, that prioritisation is a really important part of, I imagine, your management task, but you've just described a threefold increase in the work in the most recent year, full year, relative to just the year before, if I've heard you correct. And that buffer was originally put in place to deal with uncertainty about the level of demand that would be there. There's no uncertainty about what's actually unfolded. It's a threefold increase. That would, I would think, be the foundation for a strong case for replacement of that buffer, I would suggest. I'm not asking you to say what the government should do, but what would be the implications if that buffer were not replenished?
So I do think there is a reasonable question about whether it's better to fund the PBO at the level it's at a higher level, or replenish that buffer. Right. As an organisation, we would love to see both of those things, but we do recognise that there are choices across government that every government makes.
So if it were not provided in ongoing funding or in the form of a buffer, what would be the... I'm not so worried about which tool is used. I want to make sure the resources are there for a very important function for democracy. Setting aside the instrument, what would happen to your work if you didn't have that level of funding, whether through the buffer or ongoing?
We would just continue to do the prioritisation process that we work through now. We work, as you know, Senator, we work very closely with parliamentarians and parties. When they submit a large number of costings, we look to work to prioritise their priorities. We go back, I think at the moment, at least on a weekly basis, to check in and say, which of these are the most important for you? Which should we progress most quickly? We aim to work through all of our stocks, but we do... we have a 15-day turnaround for those that are active, but we have a longer period for those costings that we put on hold. So we would just continue that prioritisation process.
But its terms would change, would they not? I mean, we're very familiar with that prioritisation and have a very, admiring of the ongoing negotiation to get what we really think is important to us at the top of the list. But if you're prioritising in the current resource environment, you'll be prioritising a lot more vigorously and won't be able to, I imagine, do 1,209 requests. I'm just think there are implications for how much work you'll be able to do.
There are always implications, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your answers.
Thank you very much to the Parliamentary Budget Office, and I'll place on record my own gratitude for the work that you've done for me. We will now move to the Department of Parliamentary Services.